Alrighty, hello and welcome everybody to AIOps for Financial Services, Compliance, and Reliability. Today's exciting webinar is sponsored by Big Panda and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Mackenzie Puddesy with Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this conversation today because we'll be exploring how AIOps can be used in financial services to save you time, money, improve compliance, and overall optimize your operations. You might be looking to speed up incident resolution and improve operational efficiency, or perhaps familiarize yourself with use cases for AIOps, or better understand the technical requirements for successful AIOps implementation. If so, you are in luck because our expert presenters from Big Panda today will help you achieve just that. This will be such a cool conversation, and I can't wait to get started. So let's zip through the housekeeping and get things on our way. First, I want to draw your attention to the questions section of your webinar console. This is the best place to get involved, get interactive, and post all your insightful questions, comments, feedback, and ideas. Indeed, we do want to hear from you. So why don't you find that questions tab now, and let's give a start by saying hi, hello, hola, aloha, bonjour, or whatever greeting that feels good for you today, and give a little wave to the community that is here with us. As a quick side note, that window is also the best place to reach out and let us know if you have any technical issues during the session today. Knock on wood, of course, that we don't have that. And don't forget that a browser refresh should get rid of the usual tech gremlins if you're having any issues with audio or not seeing the video feed. But if not, just shoot a message in that questions tab and the actual tech team will be here to help. Additionally, I encourage you to be inquisitive today. We'll be wrapping up today's session with a live Q&A with our speakers, so make sure you send in all of your thoughtful questions. This is one of the greatest benefits of having these webinars is being able to pick the brains of experts, so I encourage you to do just that. And the last thing I want to point out on your audience console today is the handouts tab. Go check out some cool resources and follow-ups to our conversation today because it is just packed with great info. And some of those resources will definitely be referenced in today's presentation, so you will likely want to hold on to those. Okay, well, that is it for the housekeeping. I told you I'd keep it short and sweet, and now we are ready to start our webinar. I am super excited to introduce you to Blair Seville, who is the Field CTO at Big Panda, as well as Katie Petrillo, who is the Senior Director of Product Marketing at Big Panda. And I'm going to pass things over to you, Blair and Katie. Let's make sure you're looking good, sounding good. And with that, welcome to the stage. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here. Thanks everyone for joining us today. All right, let's jump into the good stuff here. Let's see. Start with a little bit of our agenda. What are we going to be talking through today? What will you hear from us? We're here talking about AIOps and specifically for financial services institutions. So we're going to start by talking through what we spend a lot of time talking with folks about, which is some of the challenges that they experience during the incident management process, especially with those IT operations teams. And then we're going to talk about what we're all here to talk about, which is AIOps. So what are those benefits that teams can start to expect with an AIOps platform, as well as what do you look for in an AIOps platform? Meaning, what should you be evaluating tools with an eye for? And then what everyone wants to know is, how do I actually get started? And we'll also leave you with a couple of nuggets as far as where you can get some more information and learn more about what Blair and I are going to chat through today. Sound like a plan? Let's do it. All right. Let's kick it off with, let's start with some easy topics, just the challenges. This is where Blair and I spend a lot of time talking to various organizations about on a daily basis. And so we feel we know these quite well. And I think when we talk through them, a lot of this will resonate with all of you, but we're talking about these because these are things that are what's leading people to the doorstep of AIOps and ultimately to Big Panda. And largely this has to do with the fact that many organizations are struggling with goals around operational efficiency and team productivity, as well as trying to improve their service reliability, because ultimately everybody's trying to keep their services up and running, keep their team, their customers happy, and keep revenue on an upward trajectory. But of course, as with anything, there's a lot of challenges that come in here. And I think the first one we wanted to talk through is really near and dear and to financial services, is that complexity of an IT infrastructure. Blair, I know you have some thoughts there that you wanted to share.
Yeah, with a lot of our customers, I think I've never seen so many iSeries AS400 and batch process management systems, from AutoSys to Micro Focus to everything under the sun that you can think of. I think the thing that's unique about financial services that we can all relate to is that you build your own stuff half the time. You've got your own applications, your own, I think financial services coined DevOps, quite frankly. You can't go buy an off-the-shelf retail bank software solution, right? Or a trading platform. There's just no such thing. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, a lot of the environments in a lot of these banks, these trading platforms, these mortgage brokers, you know, you name it. I think that you guys integrate with the most amount of outside organizations on the planet as well to move money, to make the world work from a transactional perspective, to do credit checks. That in and of itself, something as simple as that is, you know, 4 different crediting bureaus and all kinds of other different integrations. So it's a very complex environment, but also a highly volatile environment, because you're all, you know, held accountable for the digital experience that you're presenting, that app, that availability. And those are bleeding edge tech, right? I think that, you know, the next point when I turn it over to Katie about the uncertainty about AI in some of these systems, I don't think the right-hand side of the business at the banks are uncertain about AI. You guys are supporting AI experiences in pretty much everything that you have nowadays and incorporating it, you know, but I often find that you're not supporting it with AI, right? It's kind of an oxymoron. So that complexity is definitely needed to be addressed in any AIOps solution, and need that you're looking for to conform to it, to support legacy and support where you're going as a business as well.
Yeah, that's a good segue. I mean, AI is a great technology that holds a lot of opportunity for organizations to be able to improve their team's productivity and efficiency, because it's able to take these massive volumes of data that's coming from that complex infrastructure that Blair just talked about, and be able to process that and transform that into something that is very relevant and insightful and actionable for an IT operations team to work on and to take action on. However, I think it's easier said than done, right? There's still much to be done there around the, you know, how do I get my data to be in a high quality in order for the AI to be able to process it? How do I do so in a way that is cost effective, and so that those results are going to be meaningful for the organization? How do I make sure I'm going to get a really good ROI, especially when a lot of AI technology tends to be very expensive, right? So I think that's a significant challenge there. And, you know, all of this is, again, holds that opportunity to be able to transform that data at scale, but it really prevents the ability for our teams to be able to jump right in and throw AI at the problem right away. But I think there's a lot of opportunity, and that's what we're going to talk about today. The other piece here, you know, and I think this actually, the siloed workflows as far as a challenge goes, probably was a good one to follow up Blair's comment on, just because a lot of these silos, which is happening across teams, it's happening across tools, it's happening across processes and workflows, that's really stemming from this hybrid environment of all of these different legacy systems, and then being, also juggling that alongside all of the new digital first systems and processes. And what it's leading to is when you have sort of, and also the partnerships. I know Blair was talking about like the different credit bureaus. All of this creates teams working in silos, right? And they're working in tools in silos. That data is siloed. And that makes it really hard for teams to be able to collaborate when something has gone wrong, because that data is maybe in a unstructured format. It's in a language that another team doesn't necessarily understand. And so when it comes down to, okay, this issue is happening, how do I figure out what's going on? Where do I get this information? They might not even know who they should be talking to, what an alert actually means. Alert might be missing information. And all of that creates a lot of delays across the incident response process, which also impacts SLAs, MTTR, and overall resolution, which then, of course, is impacting availability and ultimately the customer experience. So you can kind of see the cascading effects of these silos is really extreme. And I think it's even more extreme within financial services because of that complexity.
Yeah. And that leads us to the overarching problem, right? Regulatory scrutiny. I think if anybody here is listening, has ever heard a term, and the only term that I've ever heard from financial services, even before dealing in a lot of FedRAMP and federal environments, is the term break glass. You guys came up with that first, environments that are highly scrutinized, highly regulated. It's hard to integrate all of these disparate silos, these workflows, these people, and do it intelligently so that it's auditable at the end of the day, right? And we want to be more data-driven. We want our systems to talk to each other. We want our people to talk to each other and be held accountable. But oftentimes it's hard to change. It's hard to even think about getting to a final pane of glass, for the environment, where you can at a glance understand where different areas of the bank are operating or different areas of the institution are operating. So I know it's a major concern about where data is, where does it rest? Is it, encrypted? And if we make decisions from that data, if AI makes a decision, is it auditable? Is it correctable? So we're going to be talking a little bit about that as well today, because it adds another layer of complexity to the challenge of implementing truly what AIOps is AI-driven operations management. It's a data solution first, right? Let's use that operational data from those complex systems. Let's use AI to work smarter, not harder. And let's solve the communication issue of non-access to information, waiting for a piece of information with our siloed workflows, all while taking into account with the advent of how AI works nowadays and the availability of Gen AI and these models and where the data rests, to ultimately pass the InfoSec conversation to actually make a change, to implement something. So pass it back over to you, Katie.
Yeah, I think before we move on, just one thing I want to point out that's not on the slide here, but is something that you and I have both touched on, is really that there is a strong focus on the customer experience when it comes to financial services. At the end of the day, if you do not have your customers and clients up and, running and using all of their available services, whether that's mortgages or insurance or just, credit and banking applications, that is critical. And I think especially within financial services, there's also really strong competitive nature, right? And there's a lot of different options out there for customers to choose. And so it is just of the utmost importance that you maintain that best possible experience for clients so that they stay with you as the provider. And just want to be, call that out as it's not, we're talking very inward focused, very ITOps focused, but at the end of the day, it all does come down to the customer, and am I able to deliver a service that folks can access? And that is really the number one priority for so many of the organizations that we work with.
Yeah.
If I moving along, we're talking a lot about the individual challenges that occur within IT operations, but I wanted to make sure we take a moment to just really focus on the daily workflows that you all are facing that adds so many other challenges. We were talking more at a macro level. What we're looking at here as this typical incident workflow really brings up a whole nother host of sort of micro issues, right? Each stage of the incident workflow, from triage to detection, investigation, remediation, all of these bring up their own set of challenges, questions, teams that get involved, which create, it raises a lot of collaboration challenges and coordination challenges, puts a focus on SLAs and MTTR, more of those micro topics, but are really, really important. And I know, Blair, you're really familiar with this entire workflow and process and the pains that come up. Where do you see the most pain, especially when working with financial services organizations?
All of the above, all of these areas. And, I think that's really when we at Big Panda begin kind of understanding what problem you're attempting to solve with AIOps, right? Or AI-driven operations management. We typically look at a slide like this and ask you, well, where in this process do you control things? Are you the admin or are you the owner of your ITSM or your CMDB? Are you in the tooling team wanting to reduce noise, but do you rationalize your tool in production? Do you care about how efficient ops is utilizing that observability tool, for example? And that's really where we like to focus, because the fact of the matter is that with Big Panda and AIOps, we look to impact from detection to investigation to remediation and improvement, all of these areas. And you can find value in all of these areas. You don't have to start big bang in all of them at once, but it's a very much trickle down effect, right? And at the end of the day, with this critical incident workflow, yes, AI driven operations management is a data platform first. Let's integrate with topology, with observability tools, your ITSM, your change management system, so that we can get all of that in one source of truth, so that we can make decisions, build models that inform operations and run operations more efficiently. However, we understand that in financial services that unlike most of, I'll take Hulu and Blizzard, for example, some of our customers, that their digital experience is their bottom dollar. If, you can't log into World of Warcraft, have fun on Twitter complaining that your server's down, and they start losing players and subscribers. It's a brand risk thing, but they have one critical incident workflow. Banks have tens of these, maybe even hundreds. We've noticed that all of them are broken up into little fiefdoms, right? Typically, when we integrate with customers, they have about 15 observability tools on average, right? No one's ever gotten just one. Multiply that times how many different branches are in place at a financial services institution, from mortgage to banking to retail bank. It could be bifurcated a million different ways. And we notice as well that with our financial services customers, such as, Wells Fargo, UBS, to name a few, that you also look at IT in a different way. It's as a service. Other areas of the bank come to you for support around an application, or come to you as a sold service. So you have a very service-oriented mentality. And also we notice that it's a non-outsourced most of the time, because everything that you have is so custom. It must be in-source because you're supporting legacy and building for the future. Yeah.
Awesome. When you think about kind of like the pain that exists here, I mean, do you think, how does this sort of impact, do you see impact on the compliance process? You were talking about regulation on the last, when we just talked. I mean, how does this impact sort of the regulation and compliance side of the workflow for these organizations?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we want to do is unify the environment from a data layer perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that really launch pads you to be able to, because no one wants to automate or orchestrate a broken process or a
Right.
non-understood process, especially when there's a human in the middle. And we all want to scale smarter, work harder, not hard, work smarter, not harder with it. And I often find that banks are typically at specific areas like event management correlation using 10-year-old technology or 15-year-old
Mm-hmm.
technology. They're enriching with very custom scripts, at that detection layer. And then when it comes to investigation and remediation, it's very rules based, super, super rules based. But they often don't follow those rules. They often don't
Mm-hmm.
follow those SOPs. you know so what we definitely look to do is understand where deviations are happening, understand where we're not correlating, not focused on the noise, scaling to the problem, not the noise within these environments. And more often than not, I find that in financial services, Katie, we are monitoring at such a very finite level, because
Mm-hmm.
God forbid we miss something. God
Yeah.
forbid we do not catch something on, when the bell rings, in the
Yeah.
morning at the stock
Yeah.
exchange, because it's very, very fast paced and it's very, very seasonal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's very important, and especially from a change management perspective, because more often than not, 70 to 80% of the outages are because someone changed something, right?
Yeah.
The night before or the day before during a freeze. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. All great points. There's a good question in the chat that is a good segue to our next topic, which is around what are organizations looking for in an AIOps solution? What are they looking to get? And it's a lot of this is addressing a lot of the challenges that we already talked about. In particular, when we look at this first one here around visibility, right? This is a direct outcome or direct need coming from that complexity. When FinServes in particular have very complex environments, and if you think about all the different layers of services that they're offering, from like the core banking services themselves, whether to loans or insurance or payments, all their mobile applications, those are all different pieces of the infrastructure that they need to be supporting. And if those are being managed in silos by different teams with data that doesn't speak the same language, they're really struggling to get that core visibility to know what is happening. And then not just what's happening like within this mobile application, but what are the downstream impacts that might have on other areas of the infrastructure. And so that's one of the main goals that we see clients asking us for when we start to work for them is, how do I get that visibility across my entire infrastructure? And that goes even a layer deeper than the actual kind of networks and applications and services, but also to what are the different types of data that is coming from all of those, whether that might be observability and monitoring data, or what's happened, pieces from the CMDB, or things, change data that's coming from some of your engineering team. So bringing that all together from all of those different services and having that centralized view, I think it's a little bit too opportunistic to say a single pane of glass, but perhaps it could be a first pane, or bringing more visibility, opening more of those doors and putting it all into a singular platform is really part of the goal. And when they do that, it's also about, now when you start to bring it all together, you can start to look at like-minded types of data and be able to compare them and start to toss things out, right? Take out anything that is duplicate, be able to correlate certain things, be able to enrich and filter, and ultimately reduce some of that noise. Right now, Blair talked about this, where you have all these teams that are just faced with mountains and mountains of noise, and that those eyes on glass. How do you give those teams a better shot at actually finding the biggest potential problems out there? That is really the goal that they're looking to achieve when it comes to that reduced alert noise. Claire, you want to talk about speed? I do. There is a great question in here, but I'm going to wait until you kind of talk through everything, and then we'll talk. Well, I want
Yeah,
to
I
raise.
mean, I have a question for the audience. There's quite a
Oh,
few of you
love it.
on here. Like, which one of these is the reason why you're listening right now? Like,
Mm,
and if it's not one of these, please let us know. Um,
great.
I always say that everybody in ops has two things in common. We've all got a metric and we've all got a boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a metric that we're held accountable for, and other metrics that we drive that other people are accountable for, and they look to us to drive for them. You might be on the tools or observability team, and you might not be accountable for how efficiently ops is using your observability tool, but someone in ops is. Someone in ops is responsible for driving down that noise, or understanding and having engineers working on actual issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, like you said, this concept of single pane of glass. It's not about that first. It's about a data layer, a common data layer. If it's ITSM data, if it's observability data, if it's change data, if it's infrastructure as code, if it's Jenkins pipelines, if it's your DevOps team, it all is in and coalesced in one platform and tracked, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we don't
Yep.
expect institutions and organizations to change overnight, because everybody wants to automate. Everybody wants faster
Yeah.
incident management. They want more reliability. They say automate everything, but you can't automate a broken process. You can't automate,
Mm-hmm.
an automation team isn't responsible for engineers telling them what they do for a living, or their
Yeah.
SOPs, or that everything has dependencies marked,
Yeah.
right? You have to
Yeah.
drive accountability. And in order to do that, you have to do it with data. You have to
Mm-hmm.
show that, when they make a change or they're deploying something to prod and they don't mark the purpose of what that
Mm-hmm.
application is, where it exists, if they don't do it in CMDB or inside the tags in the cloud, how are you ever going to know when it goes down, if it's important
Right.
or not?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So that
Yeah.
accountability is what we look to drive so that you can hit these things.
Yeah. Absolutely. This question here is from Ned. Thank you, Ned, for raising this, and it's about a topic we haven't touched a bit about, is risk. So, with businesses having to deal with fluctuating workloads, could a big plan to platform reduce risk and help respond to evolving the business from direct financial savings and improving productivity to reduced cost and lost time? So, could that platform help reduce risk and impact and improved financial savings, improved productivity? So I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on that,
Yeah.
Claire.
I mean, there's a bunch of different things. Like when I think risk, and if I'm an IT ops guy, the first thing I think about is change risk. Like if you're going to go make a change to a production and application that is revenue impacting the next
Yep.
day, we need to know the risk factors involved, and a backup plan as
Yep.
well, to the business, not just to the application itself. And that's one of the things that we look to with when we're doing similar incidents and we're doing root cause change analysis. We want to know not just the service impact, but the impact to the business that
Mm-hmm.
this thing is incurring. We don't expect organizations, I said this before, to change overnight. In a big Panda world, no longer does the network guy get a network ticket because the network thing is broken. He gets a network ticket with a bunch of application alarms because his stuff is breaking these things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As the root cause. And, we would love to get it right 100% of the time with saying, well, that change is the reason why this
Yeah.
incident is occurring. We're using Gen AI to point out probable root cause and explainability, and even exploring things in Biggie where we're generating change risk analysis, looking in the
Mm-hmm.
past, saying, hey, this is how many times when you put in the similar change that there was a back out or there was an incident involved within it. And we can't do that without AI, right?
Yeah.
So, Ned, to answer you directly, absolutely.
Yeah.
And impact is subjective to your organization, and we understand that. And it's customizable in Big Panda.
Mm-hmm.
Impact could be users, or impact could be revenue facing applications that are running slower and don't have
Right.
DR. Like, we want you to be able to define that,
Right.
get away from rules and get into a more organically driven, AI driven environment to keep up with it.
Absolutely. No, that's a great response. And I think there's different levels of risk that we can help reduce. And, we could even take it higher to things like you mentioned, reducing the risk of revenue loss, as well as reducing risk that is presented to your IT operations teams that comes with some of the burnout that is occurring as a result
the
of
alert
all of
fatigue, the churn. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't want to work somewhere that I'm working noise. Right?
Yep.
I want to be an engineer. So absolutely.
And of course, not all of that is directly quantifiable in the way that the risk is that you were mentioning, but I think there's different layers of risk that Big Panda can help to reduce.
You touch on a good point, Katie, and I come from the automation industry, and we used to sell to banks a lot, and they were always my customers, and they loved automation because what did automation replace? People. What's the biggest risk to any IT environment? The disgruntled DBA that leaves tomorrow and dumps all your information on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So accountability is important, and visibility is the only way that you can drive accountability through analytics, right? So thanks, Ned, for the question, man. That really you made a light bulb go off in my head, like, oh man, I remember in the automation days. Like,
got a lot we could talk about there.
Yeah.
All right. We're talking a lot about the benefits. Let's talk again. We're here to kind of help you evaluate AIOps solutions. Let's talk about what you might be looking for when you're looking at different AIOps vendors and the different types of features and functionality you could be looking at. Blair has already touched on some. We both have touched on some of these already. But there's a number of different capabilities that you really want to be looking for. I think one that really speaks to me and I think is really important, especially for a FinServ organization, is that top left one around open integrations, especially when you have such a diverse infrastructure with a lot of different tools and services at play. You want to be able to integrate with a legacy on-prem tool as well as something that is cloud-based that might be, a more simple integration, because ultimately you're all trying to get to more of, I've mentioned a couple times, data that is unstructured or not speaking that same language. You want all of your data to start to be in that standardized format so that when it gets to your operators, they can understand it and do something with it. So for me, those top two of like open integrations and the ability to improve not even quality, the usability of your data is extremely, extremely important. Blair, what speaks out to you as maybe being one of the more value? I know it's hard to choose. They're all like choosing a favorite child.
I mean, I love this because this is really, if you're looking for an AIOps solution, what are the typical technical capabilities that most customers wrap to? All right, I want to drive this value. These are my required capabilities, and this is technically what I'm looking for. I think I've got one major thing and then another thing that only financial services customers ask Big Panda for. So number one, challenge your vendor. It's in the name. If you want AI-driven operations management, AIOps, whatever you want to call it, ask them. I think we all now really understand what's the difference between patterns and rules and context, enrichment versus context, and what's AI versus machine learning, right? I mean, just with Chat GPT, or any of the Gen AI experiences that we're all using now to write quick emails to our bosses and summarize stuff. We're understanding prompting. We're understanding what persona and context and why context is so important in delegation. So challenge your vendor. If it's not me, challenge me or challenge any tool that touts that it does AIOps. All right, where's the freaking AI in your AIOps platform? Show me how it's using vector databases, actual cosine similarity, true non-machine learning, but contextually driven AI. And the other one that is very important to financial services that I find, I kind of harken back to a couple of slides ago. We mentioned, here's the incident timeline. Now take this and multiply it times 15 because you've got 15 different ops teams, 15 different, branches that have their own operating budget, their own OpEx spend and CapEx spend. that centralized platform in the center is never enough for a bank. You want a multi-tenant centralized platform. And I know that with a lot of observability vendors and ITSM vendors, that's a pain for you, because then you've got 15 different ticketing platforms and 15 different contracts, and they're in all different ways. Not to toot our own horn, but we're multi-tenant, we're multi-org, we're SaaS based. I can't name one financial services customer that doesn't have multiple instances of Big Panda that report back up to a primary central tenant, so that they can combine that data across the bank if they want to. So I would say that multi-tenancy is absolutely important as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The one last
and
one
I
I
see
would
a couple more questions here, but we'll probably save them to the end.
Yeah.
Ned had a few great questions, as well as a few others. So just letting you guys know we see them.
Yes, we see you. We will get to you. Yeah, I think the last piece I just wanted to call out here was on the reporting and analytics, and making sure that when you are looking at solutions, you're getting a solution that gives you the data you need. If we go back to the integrations, you're putting a lot of data into the platform. Are you then getting interesting and actionable analysis and dashboards that you can then do something with that data and understand impact, understand the value that you're making on, of course, MTTR, MTTX, whatever it might be, team productivity, but also going even deeper and looking at the quality of your alerts and correlation, and be able to always be improving on your organization. So I think really being able to get the level of detail as well as the customization that you might want for your organization is something that I would definitely recommend that you look for during your evaluation.
And that kind of leads us to the next slide, and a really great quote from one of our customers that has one of the largest and oldest, infrastructures on the planet when it comes to financial services. I mean, everything at the New York Stock Exchange is custom, and NYSE is not just NYSE, right? It's massive. The amount of trading and the amount of things that flow through that environment, and they're having to upgrade every 3-5 years certain areas and certain layers of their infrastructure to support that speed at which they've changed as well. And Chuck's been a great advocate. He's spoken at a couple of events of ours, but the thing that Big Panda did, and without quoting him directly here, is it gave them the ability to measure the problem first and understand what to address and what value addressing it would mean. Don't go, I'll talk about, there was another customer of ours, not New York Stock Exchange, that this happened at. They were about to pull the trigger on an event-driven automation platform that they were going to implement bank-wide, because they were about to change. And this was right at the cusp of Big Panda making it into an area of their bank. We were deployed in a different one, and they realized that, they're node-based in pricing, and it would have cost them an arm and a leg. I'll put it to you that way. They went from like 1.8 million tickets to 20,000. Do you want to scale an automation practice to 1.8 million or 20,000? Right. So just a really quick example of, really understanding how you could take everything, and it's not just noise, it's non-actionable things, right? We use that word noise, but what we truly mean is things that people are not putting effort in working, to actually fix. Because you still need some of that noise to prove you need to make, certain infrastructure that's being held together by dreams, upgrade it, from a capacity perspective or everything else, right? We're actually talking about actionability.
Right. And this is something that New York Stock Exchange and Intercontinental Exchange, their parent company, has prioritized, because at the higher level, there are 40 different BUs across mortgages and bonds, the multiple exchanges. And so the complexity is really significant. And what we really found, or with working with Chuck and New York Stock Exchange and ICE, is they were prioritizing innovation and the use of AI. If we go back to that, what we were talking about challenges, there's so much opportunity that is held within AI to be able to transform that significant noise into something actionable. And Chuck had tried it multiple times in the past. And this, with using Big Panda, was really the first time that they found success in actually getting rid of the noise and focusing their teams just on the stuff that matters. And that made a huge impact on their organization, productivity wise, as well as availability wise. And that's really the results that we're looking to drive with Big Panda. And I think one other thing I want to point out, there's some other logos here. We work with a lot of different financial services organizations across the board. And I want to just point out that, when it comes to how should you get started, there's a lot of things that at Big Panda has learned about how to do this well, do it effectively, specifically within a financial services org, because they are not like every other company that is out there. And we have really developed this tried and true approach to rolling out and making AIOps successful in these organizations, that allows them to be able to maximize efficiency and service delivery, just like we did with AIOps. And, that comes down to making sure you have the right team involved. This is not a one team siloed tool. We're breaking down the silos here, right? So who needs to be involved across the org, get them in there. And then making sure you know what you're measuring, have the metrics that you need to show success, know what your baseline looks like, know where you're looking to get. And then at Big Panda, we'll make sure you can get there. We are going to take a very pragmatic approach to, you might have 50 data sources, but we can't do all of those at once. Let's start with a few, see some of those results against that baseline, and then start to expand from there. And then you can start to share those results. You might have a team that says, hey, I'm not sold on this AIOps tool or Big Panda. I don't want to be sending my data over to you. All right, well, let's start with those initial data sources and those teams that are bought in and start to measure that noise reduction, that MTTR reduction, see the additional awareness that those teams get when they put all of their data through an AIOps platform, and let the results speak for themselves to really expand on that usage. Blair, you've worked on a lot of different rollouts. What do you see as being successful for teams when they're looking to get started?
I'll say this, Big Panda at first, we've been around for about a decade now. Most of the time it's the tools team that brings us in, right? Because they're looking to kind of solve a noise issue traditionally. I think we've replaced, solutions like Moogsoft and Netcool at banks time and time again because they're moving off of older technology. And what's often, or not, after, we get it up in the deployment, that call sheet of who's involved grows by 20-fold because it starts getting not the, let's just say like your ITSM or your ticketing platform's admin involved for the integration. We get the owners involved, right? Who owns the CMDB? Who owns your operational workflow? Because, when our customers come to a Big Panda event, they don't go, Big Panda, you're the greatest noise reducer out there, the best correlation platform on the planet. No, they talk about, hey, we are hitting our MTTX statistics. We are scaling smarter, not harder. When are we going to add Gen AI to this capability that you're coming out with? When is that coming out for our operators, right? Our retention on our employees is much better because they're not getting alert fatigue, right? It's really, really about that at the end of the day. So I would say if you're looking at this as a technical solution that's going to solve a noise problem, actually the benefits of our platform are experienced in operations, really. In operational workflow and efficiency. So I would say involve the automation team, involve the operations team. We can really show them what their tickets look like today and what they're going to look like tomorrow. They know what bad looks like, right? And where you want to go. So, yeah.
Great. I love it. All right. We're getting close to questions here. So if you have any more questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. But before we do that, I will just put a reminder in here that all of the topics that Blair and I have been going through around sort of looking at the capabilities that you should be looking for in an AIOps solution, looking at requirements, understanding how to get started. All of that is in our AIOps buyer's guide, which is attached here in the console, or you can certainly visit us at bigpanda.io to be able to grab that piece of collateral. And with that, I think we'll move over to Q&A. I think Mackenzie's going to join us again to lead us into a successful Q&A.
All right. No, great presentation. Love this kind of conversational way of connecting together between you and also the audience. And I think this is just such a compelling topic. So we do have quite a few questions. We'll try to get through as many as we can today. And with that, I'm just going to dive in. So you guys can kind of decide how you want to answer them, if you want to both pipe in or, So first one here is from Joseph. Joseph is asking, as AI increases presence in the consumer space, can we expect legislation that requires all AI to announce they are an artificial being and require when the human asks for another human, it is granted? Hopefully I said that well.
Yeah, I don't, we had legislation around being recorded on lines come up, but I think, Joseph, in the world that we're working in ITOps and where we live with Big Panda, we're not very customer facing. We're not resetting passwords. We're dealing more with infrastructure. We do have a Copilot. Spoiler alert, if you go to our website that we are launching very soon, that is, more along that lines of customer facing. But one thing that I can say that we anticipated this at Big Panda quite some time ago, and we operate with what we call pragmatism when it comes to AI. So you will notice in our platform when Big Panda speaks up and says, I think this change caused this outage, it'll not only tell you that, it'll tell you why it thinks that, the reason behind it, because we want to offer you the ability to correct it. That's something that we didn't bring up before, but if you're going and buying an AI off the shelf solution, a Copilot or whatever it may be, challenge that vendor with, hey, if it gets something wrong, can I tell it it's wrong? And will it get it right the next time? Trainability is key. Pragmatism is key. The ability for you to customize it, Joseph, so it does announce the fact that it is AI and not a person, right? I think is vehemently more important. But I wouldn't be surprised from a regulation perspective that I'm seeing a lot more in the realm of intellectual property concerns. Yeah. Like if you train an AI model with your data and it becomes a worker or fulfills a persona at your organization, do you own that worker? The data that trained it, right? That's very important. And that's the crux of the matter with Big Panda. It's your data training these models and it's prescriptive to you, not anyone else, right? And that's what's important. You own that data. You own that model.
Awesome. Katie, anything you wanted to add to that?
Just that Big Panda will continue to have that sort of pragmatism, explainability built into our AI, into our Copilot. You will always know, we'll provide you a response, but you'll always know why we landed there. Why did we end there? You'll have some breadcrumbs and sources to back that up.
Yeah, that's key. I forgot to mention that too, but something that we're noticing with our Copilot too is we cite the source. We're telling you to go do this because we got it from this SOP. Because, Mackenzie said 2 months ago in a Slack chat that this was the problem and it deviated from the SOP. Mm-hmm. We're going into a world where a highly regulated rules-based ops is full of rules, business logic rules and ITSMs, observability rules. We have to grow out of those things. And the only way to do that is to have AI analyze them and say, hey, when this outage occurs, your people do this and your SOP says to do this. Who's wrong? The documentation or the way that your people are working? So that's the new era that we're working towards and where we can seed and feed data and models at the speed at which you work. And that's where we're going.
That's really cool. Really powerful, honestly. And even that kind of reference to this came up in a Slack channel 2 months ago, like the level of detail it's pulling in, that's impressive.
It's getting pretty impressive. I can tell you that.
Context is king.
That's
Context
awesome.
is king.
Context is king. We'll make that a hashtag. Or I mean, hashtags might be out now. We've got algorithms doing it. So
Yeah.
I was about to say.
Okay, another question I got came in here is what kind of skills and expertise are needed within an IT team to successfully implement and manage an AIOps solution?
I mean, I think the biggest skill and expertise, I mean, when we start to look at AI and especially our co-pilot, your skills, what we want to do is put kind of all of your operators on the same playing field. You may have an operator responder that's been here for 30 years, 10 years, 3 years, whatever, some long period of time, everything is relevant. You may have someone that is brand new. When you look at what Big Panda is doing, and if we go back to that integration, the open integrations that we have and bringing in all of that context from observability, from change, from the CMDB, we're bringing all of your data into one place and then running it through an LLM so that all of those operators are able to look at the same information and have that immediate understanding of what is happening with an incident, what is the root cause, how might I go potentially resolve this? And that's the same whether you've been here for 3 days or 3 years. And I think that's really important because, a lot of organizations rely on those more tenured and experienced operators. And it doesn't have to be that way anymore. We can really bring everyone up to the same point to improve productivity, help everyone make the best possible decision and in a quick amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, it depends on what you're focused on in the platform at any given time, right? From a skills perspective, if you're focused on correlation and noise reduction, whoever on your observability team knows that event management flow really well, that can interface with SMEs, that can take the machine, the pattern suggestions and the AI-based suggestions as well from our platform to say, hey, we see these things happen all the time. Are they related, human? Let me know. So whoever's really good at delegating and kind of understanding how ops works, is really the skill to hone with Big Panda, because once you integrate something with Big Panda, you're not really touching that stuff anymore, right? It's always constantly growing. It's always constantly suggesting. So I would say someone that operationally understands how to orchestrate something end to end, from all the way from an alert to resolution, and then be able to collaborate with you and report on what you need to report on to be successful. So it's more about finding that change agent inside of your environment. Then if you're focused on automation, then it's an automation SME that wants to add tags and make it more regulatory. I need these things to always consistently appear this way because my automation expects it. Like, different people work within Big Panda at different times for different goals.
Awesome. Okay, I've got a few more here. I'm going to keep things moving. So next question, kind of a practical one here. Can you guys provide more details about the out-of-the-box dashboards mentioned in the context of reporting, and how customizable are they? So if people kind of want to dig in and play around and get set up, how would that look?
Yeah.
Good.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I touched a little bit about analytics and reporting, and so I figured I could kick it off. I mean, so I mentioned the integrations. We bring in all of your various data, but as far as our unified analytics goes, we present to you a series of dashboards that are sort of out of the box that measure a lot of the key metrics that we see organizations looking to look at. Things like improvements to their MTTR, or how the level of their alert quality. So being able to understand, of all of the alerts that are coming into Big Panda, what are we seeing as high quality, medium, low, and quality being really defined by how much context, how much information do we know about that alert, whether it is assignment group, priority, impact, runbook. that really determines that quality, which has a big impact for an organization to know, what is noise, as well as which tools are sending the highest performing alerts, what might not be. So you can actually go and do something about that, right? Go improve that alert payload, determine if that tool is really something that is valuable to the organization or not. Well, if you also have the opportunity to bring in some of your ITSM data to really be able to connect the dots between what's happening in Big Panda to the incidents that your team is managing over in your ITSM tool, which really allows you to get at a even more accurate view of MTTR, as well as team productivity and things like that. What other dashboards might you call out, Blair?
Yeah, I would say more of the metrics that are unique to Big Panda that I've never seen in another platform.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two that come to mind. That's incident quality and alert quality.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very important. Like, no one's ever actually measuring the quality of an incident. Now, what does that mean? Right? In Big Panda, we have a baseline for it and you can customize it. So I say that a incident that is of high quality is one that contains dependency information, impact, run books, right? Who, what, where, when, and why, CMDB enrichment, and is actionable. That's a high quality incident. That's going to probably have a lower MTTR than one that's of low quality that doesn't contain all of those pieces of information. The same thing can be said about alerts. Without a spoiler alert, pun intended, those are kind of measured in the exact same way. Is data there? Are things cataloged properly, tagged properly, as it flows into the NOC? We want to be able to give you reports that say, hey, if a CI doesn't appear in your CMDB and it's not bonded to an incident, are those things solved faster or slower? So don't think about tracking the success of your CMDB as if it's inventory. Everything out there is here and in here. That's a really rudimentary way of tracking it. It's more along how operationally it's being adopted. And where those gaps are, like what Katie was alluding to, we can drive accountability, because as we saw before, we impact all the way from the alert to how it's solved. And the only way to get all those people involved is to drive accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I think we're pushing up against time, but I'm going to see if we can squeeze in one final question. This was also from Ned there. He's asking, does the Big Panda platform include financing options, IT infrastructure support options, and a channel network to significantly increase the speed of IT operations and enable IT to respond to business needs faster?
Yeah, we had answered that earlier. I think there was the last question here was like from Ned. He asked, what type of AI does Big Panda offer as part of its AIOps platform, and does it scale across hybrid on-prem and cloud environments? So really quickly, our platform is SaaS-based. So we are in the cloud. We do not deploy anything on-prem. And as far as InfoSec and regulatory environments are concerned, you see our customers today. So obviously we can exist in some of the most heavily regulated financial services customers environments and interconnect with on-prem and cloud software that you're using from a SaaS-based perspective. And as far as the type of AI that we use, I think we've talked about it quite a few times. We use ML and AI, big bag of words, algorithms, cosine, there's cosine linear clusters. I think what's important is when you ask your AI ops solution vendor of choice what type of AI they use, ask them how they store your data too. We store your data from a vectorized approach, like the newer, similar, contextually, flying stinging insects over through the queen, the bees over through the patriarchy. Those two things I just said are the exact same thing, right? But they would never appear in an SQL search in a regular old database, right? So we store things in that way. We ask questions in that way. So it's LLMs. We use RAG, obviously, in order to train models of your data. And then as a last step, we use an LLM of choice in order to ask questions of that data. So I hope that answers your question about what type of AI we use.
Awesome. Incredible. Well, before I let you two go, any final comments you want to leave here with the audience, or a final call to action if someone is really keen to get started and learn a bit more about Big Panda?
Yeah, I would say definitely check out our website. Feel free to join bigpanda.io. Tons of information on there, as well as some options to reach out to us and contact us. We can also follow up with you after the webinar. I think we'll be able to do that. But we just thank you for joining, everyone. Also, great engagement. Love the questions. Really nice to
Thank you
hear
so much.
people. Yeah, that makes a big difference. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much again. I think the audience clearly enjoyed this, and great amount of questions. I enjoyed this, and with that, I'll let you two off. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, you two. Alrighty, quick reminder before we wrap up to everyone, if you have not yet checked out the handouts tab, you absolutely should. In there, you're going to find both the AIOps buyer's guide that was referenced, covering financial services. It's a great PDF outlining important considerations and criteria when evaluating an AIOps platform to reduce your downtime. So definitely grab that before we close things out. You'll also find another PDF linked in there, which overviews 3 ways to speed up IT ops for financial services, and how full context ops can reduce MTTR by up to 50%. And in there, you'll also see a link to an exclusive ebook from Big Panda. So again, you'll definitely want to check those out and grab those before the webinar wraps today. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I just want to thank again Big Panda for making this webinar possible, and especially to our incredible speakers, Blair and Katie, who have given us so much to think about today. And hey, I want to send a high five out there to all of you just for being with us today and making this event possible as well. I know sometimes it can be difficult to stop the daily grind and pull our heads up from our day-to-day work and really make that mental space in our days to think ahead and plan ahead. And in this case, learn how to take on the challenge of AIOps in regard to financial services and make it into an incredible opportunity for our organization. So I know I learned a lot from today, and I hope that you all did too, and you're feeling fired up and ready to make some moves and some additional adjustments in your organization. And with that, I can't wait to see you all on another webinar again soon. And I'm wishing you an absolutely magical rest of your days. Take care, everybody.